So, welcome to Let's Talk About Flicks. It's a movie review podcast, and I'm Oz.
And I'm Curtis.
And we're just going to get together each week and talk about a movie that we have in common. And with the twist that each month will be a different theme, so that we'll be each bringing two movies to the table. And we'll just discuss them and share our thoughts, what we love, what we don't love, what we're really confused about, and go from there. Curtis?
So we're really confused about a lot of things. So we are not self-professed experts by any means. We're a couple of nobodies who enjoy movies and like to think we have minimal education and minimal insight into things. But more or less, we're hoping that this is just a fun time that we can have with you, the listener.
Yeah, and that's really our key, is making sure, as a couple of best friends that don't get together enough, this is our foray to at least have a conversation once a week with each other. And it just happens to be about something we love, movies. So we're going to kick off episode 1 and month 1 of this whole podcast endeavor with a list of a couple of our favorites here. And the first theme is 80s Carpenter films. So we're really excited about this, as we're both big fans.
Yeah, John Carpenter's done great things outside of the 80s as well, but we really feel like the 80s was his heyday, so that's kind of where we decided to land with this for the get-go. And the first movie that we decided to take a bite out of is 1986's Big Trouble in Little China.
If you don't have a taste for Big Trouble in Little China, hopefully we can change your mind, because it's definitely bizarro world out there, and John Carpenter handles it better than anybody.
Yes, Bizarro World is an understatement. This is a movie, I don't even know what genres you could combine this into. Action, sci-fi, horror, comedy.
Fantasy.
Yes.
It's such a... And then it flips everything on its head multiple times. You're turning corners, and it's just kind of all over the place, but it's a great time nonetheless.
Yes, screwball comedy. There's moments where it feels like a late 30s, early 40s Howard Hawks movie, which is just great.
And you got John Wayne stamped all over it, with our main character, Jack Burton. So tell us a little bit about some of the characters in this flick we've been watching.
Sure. Jack Burton, played by none other than Kurt Russell, is, I guess, what you would describe as the lead character. It kind of depends on perspective in some ways. Yeah.
I think he's lead character for marketing purposes, but I felt he's definitely the sidekick in this movie, at best.
Yes. Yeah, the bumbling hero, anti-hero in some ways, but just the big goof. Kind of Jack Burton. The fact that he many times throughout the film refers to himself as Old Jack Burton.
Jack Burton
kind of gives you an indication as to how Jack Burton thinks of himself. So the other cast of characters we have, Wang Chi, who is a buddy of Jack's. He works in everything is set in San Francisco, so he works in owns a local restaurant down in San Francisco.
Yeah, Chinatown, to be more specific, based on the title. But
yes,
we got Little China, and right, like you said, restaurant owner. An immigrant, I would say, as we find out early on, which we'll discuss, that he's bringing his love interest over from the motherland, as Jack likes to refer to China, the motherland.
And that love interest, Mao Ying, his longtime girlfriend, he's been waiting 5 years to bring her over, and she just happens to have striking jade green eyes. Mm-hmm. Seems very committed. Very committed and very loyal. That Wang. We also have Gracie Law.
Go ahead. What does Gracie Law do for a profession?
Well, with a name like that, I'm sure she could do anything, but by sheer coincidence, she just happens to be a lawyer based out of Chinatown. So Gracie Law. If she was a bus driver, I guess her name would be Gracie Bus or whatnot.
Or she could have worked for Wang if she was Gracie Cook.
Yes.
Or Gracie Waitress.
But her name is Gracie Law, and she just happens to be a lawyer.
Yeah, and it makes me think, is she Gracie Law in the same as, like Scott Baio was Bob Law? Is this, I'm going to change my name to my profession so that this is another Chad Ochocinco kind of situation.
Exactly. So I mean, if all of our names were what we did for a living, my name would be Curtis School Counselor,
and I'd be Oz technical or technology coordinator / /
It's quite a last name you'd have there.
Yeah. / Well, and yes. That's taken already.
Yeah, exactly. Cordell Stewart, yeah.
Yeah, or I was thinking more guitar player for Guns N' Roses.
Yes. It's funny, you went to Guns N' Roses, I went to Cordell Stewart. It's probably because I was just watching the Bears get whooped on. That said, some of our other cast of characters we have Egg Shen, who is a tour guide, drives his bus in Chinatown. Also is a local mystic.
Yeah.
Has an extensive office that just happens to look very similar to the interior of the Ghostbuster headquarters.
It's where it's filmed. And lots of potions. Lots of potions.
I mean, you can't have enough potions.
No, he's got plenty of potions.
He's bringing back pestle and mortar like you don't know.
He's definitely got that covered.
Some of the other characters, we have Eddie, who's a maitre d' at Wang's restaurant. We have Margot, who is a journalist trying to get her breakthrough, happens to work very closely with Gracie. We have the Three Storms.
Oh, I love the Three Storms. I've always loved the Three Storms.
Yes. And then finally, we have the villain, David Lopan.
We have two versions of David Lopan, even. Mm-hmm. We've got David Lopan, who looks his age, and David Lopan, who's an Asian Herman Munster.
Yes.
He's a tall drink of water, that David Lopan.
He is a tall drink of water. Over 7 feet tall in his platforms. So the plot of Big Trouble in Little China, as we go through this every week, we'll kind of introduce our listeners and watchers to the cast of characters, and then we'll dig into the basic plot points, have some fun with that as we go. So we open on a scene that from what I understand, the studio kind of forced Mr. Carpenter to film, which is Egg Shen talking to the police in the aftermath. So this is set post-film, even though it opens the film in which Egg Shen is demonstrating that, yes, magic does exist, and that Jack Burton is a hero.
Yeah, that I could see where the studio jumped in, because if you've seen the movie, you understand what we're talking about. If you haven't seen the movie, you come to find out by the end of it that, in some ways, Jack is in the way. He's a barricade to a lot of what's going on, and a lot of this could have happened and been solved without Jack Burton. So I agree. If do you agree here that I almost feel like Jack Burton's presence is the viewer's way into what's going on? That all of this would have happened regardless if Jack Burton was there or not.
Yeah, so, it probably would have gone a lot smoother too for our heroes. Yeah. But yeah, Jack Burton is definitely the stand-in for the audience. So you kind of see things through his eyes, through his reactions, through his experiences. So
definitely a studio play on let's remind everybody who the real hero of this American action film is.
Exactly. So after that kind of forced opening scene, which does feel out of sorts, with the real opening for me is Jack sitting in his big rig, the Pork Chop Express. The
Pork Chop Express.
driving hydroplaning, I would say, into San Francisco, and talking on a CB to an audience of no one.
Can you imagine being another truck driver or police officer, somebody in the vicinity who's picking up the channel that Jack Burton's on? It's just nonstop talking to himself, waxing poetic of all the life lessons he has to share with everybody.
Yes.
I just assume everybody in listening distance is switched to a different channel.
Yeah. It's the thing about Jack Burton is, as fun of a character as he is, I would find him absolutely insufferable. In real
absolutely,
life.
yeah. If knowing that it's Kurt Russell playing a role, Jack Burton would not be somebody I would choose to spend a lot of time with.
True. So he's driving into San Francisco, talking on a CB, eating a giant sandwich, has the old naked lady silhouette on the grill of the truck. Kind of gives an idea as to who good old Jack Burton is.
Driving with his sunglasses on in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
And he's very deft with his hands, as he's, like you said, he's going from steering wheel to CB radio to giant sandwich without missing a beat.
Yeah. And he's
all while wearing his sunglasses.
And he's moving on that wet road too.
With no trailer. So I've always wondered, like, where's he going? He's not taking anything anywhere. He doesn't appear to be picked.
He's got to get there quick, though. He is a busy man, that Jack Burton. So he ends up going into Chinatown and hanging out with his old buddy Wang, playing around a cards, doing some gambling.
Play a lot of dominoes. These guys have been playing dominoes for hours.
It's the game to play if you're old Jack Burton.
High stakes dominoes.
I know. So he ends up winning some money, and Wang owes him money. So that's kind of what really gets things going, is that he won't let Wang out of his sight.
Yes, Wang needs that money to bring Miao Yin over. Is that what the money was for? Okay. Yeah. So Wang can't lose it, and Jack is too bullheaded to part with it.
Yes. And Wang is kind of off his game. He loses a couple of different games they play because his head is clearly with his fiancée coming on over. Been 5 years since he's seen her. He
even slaps himself in the head almost at one point. Of course, my spirit and my soul are not alive. Like, it's such a 80s stereotypical Chinese thing to say that, of course, goes way over Jack's head.
Yeah, because he doesn't get it. He's a simpleton. So they end up at the airport to pick up Miao Ying, and lo and behold, Gracie Law just happens to be there.
Did you notice as he's pulling into town in his rig, the visual introduction of all of these characters? Like when they're driving down and they almost Margot's walking down the road and you see Eddie on the side as well. And I just thought I found it endearing at the same time, but I was watching all these characters just be introduced. We don't see anybody we're not supposed to. But as large of a city as San Francisco is, it just kind of gave a homey feel to maybe the size of Chinatown, where everybody we need in our story is introduced visually in the first few minutes, and we don't see anybody we're not supposed to.
Yeah, it's a good, quick way to get to know the characters, get to know the landscape. Again, those are things that Carpenter's always great at as well. Mm-hmm. You set the scene very well right at the beginning there. So they end up at the airport. Jack ends up hitting on Gracie Law because, of course, she's at the airport, because where else would she be?
Right.
And then a local Chinatown gang shows up.
And we know they're the bad guys because the music drops.
Yes.
They've got that just beautiful Carpenter score dropping underneath them, that this is bad guy music. And you could tell by they're wearing black, so they're bad guys.
Of course.
And they've got cool sunglasses on. So, they're definitely hitting the... If you've got 80s movie punks in Chinatown, this is what they look like.
Yeah. So a fight ensues at the airport. They end up taking Miao Yin and running off with her. So Jack and Wang hop in the big rig and chase after him and end up back in Chinatown in a back alley.
Chase after them in their red Pontiac Firebird or Camaro or some fast bad guy car.
Yeah, 80s sports car. Yeah. In the most 80s sports car ever.
Oh yes. As they're all packed in, and because it's, if you've ever seen the interior of these cars, it's a 2-seater that they've now crammed 4 people into. So it was kind of funny seeing these bad guys practically sitting on each other's laps as they're speeding away from the Pork Chop Express.
Imagine them going to the airport. they're not speeding at all. They're just packed into this tiny car.
Just get in, let's go.
Legs hanging out of windows, stopped at the traffic light.
Unless one of them was folded up in the back like Mao Ying was on the way there. Joe, it's your turn. You hop in the back.
Stop for some milkshakes on the way. Got to carb up for the fight at the airport. So they pull into Chinatown, and they come across a funeral in this back alley. And
as you do.
Yes, as one does. And in addition to the folks there for this funeral, these other 2 gangs show up. So we're minutes into the film, in a back alley. Jack and Wang are in Jack's rig, just kind of watching all this unfold.
And yeah, this scene plays in your very stereotypical 80s action film where you've got what you'd say 30 to 40 at least on each side, but every fight's one-on-one. Every fight's trading punches, and it's a well done montage of action film because you see, you almost see the results of every fight going on in this back alley, because everything's ended in one or two punches. But it's not monotonous in that it's not kick, 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 punch, punch, punch. It's the first thing they do is whip out a bunch of guns. I mean, they westernize this martial arts fight by first, all right, let's get the guns out of the way. They start firing away, and then out come the swords and the blades and
all the melee weapons.
Yeah, and then you've got throwing through windows and punches, and of course, the good guys are all good guys because they throw that symbol at each other.
Yes.
So.
And all the while, Jack and Wang are just sitting in the truck like, what is going on? And they're reacting to things like a guy gets stabbed. They're just like, whoa!
Which, in hindsight, as we plan, kind of surprises me that Wang didn't appear to know what was going on when, as the story unfolds, like, he's well-versed in virtually everything that's going on in these mystic arts, but this fight seemed to really surprise him.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, his mind and his heart and his soul have been with his fiancée, and now she's gone and taken, and then this unfolds.
Right.
So the fight escalates, and then the three storms arrive. Oz, would you care to describe the three storms?
Oh, the three storms. You've got Mortal Kombat characters that really, for the first time outside of the introduction with Egg showcasing, his lightning skills, everything's been grounded in physical action so far. So three storms show up. Now you've got these two warring gangs that basically stop because they realize what's just showed up. And so you've got Thunder, and I'm guessing Rain is the middle guy, and Lightning. We hear Thunder and Lightning referred to by name as the movie unfolds. But Thunder pops in, and he's got his leopard band, wristbands, and he's ready to fight. And he's the physical force behind the three storms. Then
he's the muscle. He's the brawler.
You got Rain popping down. I'm guessing his name's Rain. And he's got his katanas. He's the stealthy one of the bunch. I felt he would be the most ninja-like. He's the most crouching tiger, hidden dragon of the three storms.
Yeah, he's the fighter of the three. I would say
he pops in and
fighter.
He's got his swords going, and then of course we've got the big bad guy who actually Raiden from Mortal Kombat was based on. Lightning. He pops in and he's got his wicker hat and he's got his studded vest and he's shooting lightning between his fingers. And these three come down and just wipe out everything else. Like, it's whatever you guys were doing is peanuts to what we're going to do. So it turns into these three against everyone else, and it's not even close.
Yeah, they absorb gunfire. Nothing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, just right away, just boom, 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 and nothing. So. And
finally, Jack and Wang are like, okay, we got to do something. We got to get out of here. And so Jack hits the gas, and the three storms step aside, and beyond them is Lo Pan standing at the end of the alley, and Jack runs him over.
And we see it from behind. Like, he doesn't he doesn't disappear. He just gets flattened and run over, and it didn't matter.
And so they're like, what's going on? And of course, Jack hops out of the vehicle, and Lo Pan's not there anymore. And it turns out that he kind of, despite the fact that you saw him go over, he's basically kind of phased through.
Yeah. He just stands up, and he's got that big David Lo Pan smile on his face.
And then comes one of the coolest effects in the whole movie, the light out of the eyes and then out of the mouth. Blinds Jack and Wang. They run off. Just to get out of there. And
to solve their blindness problem, they just splash mud puddle water in their face.
Yeah.
In a back alley mud puddle water. Ladies and gentlemen, if you find yourself temporarily blinded, public service announcement, find a back alley, find a deep mud puddle, and just splash that water in your eyes.
Yeah, mud water does the trick.
Two wrongs make a right in this case, and you'll get your vision back.
I mean, the parasites must have really worked a number on that Lo Pan magic.
It really does. It plays a part.
Mm-hmm. So they run off. They hide from the others. They end up back at Wang's restaurant to kind of regroup. Wang's uncle is there, and the maitre d' Eddie is there. And then who happens to show up at this restaurant along with the gang but
Kim Cattrall.
Gracie Law. She's
Gracie
there.
Law.
Gracie Law. Played by Kim Cattrall, everyone's favorite 80s actress who really made her name in Sex and the City. However, this was one of the films that kind of helped get her going, in her career going in the 80s.
Aside from a Police Academy film and Mannequin. Mm-hmm. I was a big fan.
I think Porky's was in there as
well.
Yeah.
And the studio didn't want to hire her. I read this in the IMDb trivia that because of her background in Porky's and Police Academy, she was just kind of this raunchy slapstick actress, and Carpenter saw something in her and gave her the part, and I think it worked out well. She did a great job.
I thought it was a great fit, for that role and for that character.
Well, she had enough acting talent to hang with Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
which, as really outside of Margot, as the only American actress in the lineup, and Margot's just kind of she's Eddie's equivalent to where they're there, but they're not really there. Yeah. They needed somebody that could hang with what Kurt Russell was throwing out there, and I thought she did a great job.
Yeah. So they come up with a plan. They decide to send Jack undercover into the White Tiger brothel, and he asks for the girl with green eyes.
What? I don't remember what his name was when he went in there.
Oh, I'm blanking right now as well, but it was something silly and kind of dorky.
Well, all of it was, you consider the White Tigers run by by Mrs. O'Toole, and she's a older Chinese lady named Mrs. O'Toole. So I'm assuming she's married an Irishman. So in Chinatown, but yeah, Jack Burton, like you said, he pops in and he's looking the part as the guy who really does need help, having a lady of the night, because he's not pulling his own game.
No, he's got the goofy green plaid suit on.
Oh yeah, it's actually it was the same outfit that he wore in a previous movie, Used Cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was. He must have kept the wardrobe, or it probably wasn't used often. So
they're in the brothel. The Mrs. O'Toole goes to check on Miao Ying, and then our three favorite buddies show up.
Yep.
The three storms.
The three storms show up.
Jack punches one of them in the face a couple of times, then he gets booted through a wall.
Yeah. One of the few that actually survive an encounter with the three storms, just to show you the power of Jack Burton.
The power of the white lead actor.
Right.
Yeah. So they show up. They take out Jack pretty quick. They run off with the girl. Jack and everybody else, they all regroup back at Gracie's apartment, and Wang vows to go after Miao. Yeah,
there's no stopping love.
Mm-mm.
No. But she's beautiful. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
You see these actors side by side. She's way above his grade. So, I think he's aware that she's out of his league, so he's willing to do what it takes. I figure he paid to bring her over here.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to get those jade eyes.
So Jack and Wang, they end up going to Lopan's hideout, pretending to be from the phone company. They find a secret elevator, which, of course, is booby-trapped.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get into this place.
Yes. So the bad guys flood the elevator. They swim into some torture chamber filled with rotting carcasses.
It's the hell of the upside-down sinners, as Wang, who... he's just aware. This is the hell of the upside-down sinners. Apparently, and as he says, there's lots of hells in Chinese mythology, and apparently they're all in this building.
So you really, by this point, get an idea that Wang is the real hero here. He knows what he's doing.
By far.
He responds appropriately. He's got the good head on his shoulders, and Jack he's there. He doesn't know what to do. He acts like he knows what to do, but he's clearly out of his league.
And I think he knows it, but he's still just got so much bravado, he's not going to pass it off.
Oh, he's way too proud. Way too proud.
Way too proud. So, he defers to Wang a lot, after he chimes in with what he should do. And then, yeah.
So they get captured, the three Storms, they beat him up, they torture him, they tie him into old wheelchairs, and they bring him before old David Lopan.
Very old.
Mm-hmm. Who threatens them.
2,000-year-old David Lopan.
So I think he looks good for a 2,000-year-old.
He looks great for 2,000 years old. Like, he looks great for 110. But
I mean, if I look half that good when I'm 2,000,
he's pretty spry for 2,000.
Yeah.
And he's still got women on his mind. That's all he wants. 2,000 years old, and I want a woman.
If I'm that spry when I get to his age, I mean, one can only hope, I guess. So Lopan threatens him, interrogates them for more info about the women with green eyes, and Jack he just talks smack to Lopan because that's what old Jack Burton does.
Right? Yeah, it's old Jack. When you come across a 2,000-year-old Chinese man, you don't pull any punches. You just treat him the same as you treat everybody else.
Yeah, like a jerk.
Don't be amazed that you're talking to a 2,000-year-old man.
No, you don't ask questions. You don't empathize. So Eddie, Gracie, and Margot, in the meantime, show up at the establishment. They end up in an elevator, get gassed and knocked out. In the meantime, Jack and Wang have managed to free themselves, and he ends up holding the knife to Thunder, who hulks out, knocks Jack backwards into a wheelchair, down the ramp, through some guys. They go flying. By the way, I love how guys get beat up in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they hit a trampoline any time.
They explode out of where they're at. And the fact that this really old wheelchair is never knocked off its course.
No, it goes straight backwards.
Right. It's. I'm pretty sure that they've laid down tracks. It reminded me very much of the minecart in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Temple of Doom. I'm sorry. You're in there, and this is the direction we're going. If you get in the way, you're going to move. There's no way that these. Would they run over 3? Did Jack back over 3 fighters on the way down, and they all just
two or three guys?
They all just explode out of it.
It's they don't make those old wheelchairs like they used to. You can't beat the ball bearings in those things. So they end up rolling down. He rolls down this hill and right into this well, the lip of this well.
Yes,
where old Jack reaches down and he's able to kind of hulk his way.
Oh, absolutely.
Up in the wheelchair. So he grabs the sides and he's able to stabilize himself before he falls backwards in the wheelchair down this well.
Never seen a man stop inertia better than Jack Burton did on that. The speed and velocity that he was going down that ramp backwards, not knowing where he was going because he's going backwards. But as soon as he hits, like you said, he just grabs the wheelchair, grabs the wheels, and stops himself from toppling over backwards. Super strength.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even had any potion yet.
No, he has not had the potion, which will definitely come up later. So, Lopan transforms himself. He ends up at one of the coolest looking scenes in the movie. Transforms himself back into like boss Lopan.
Yeah.
Phases through a bunch of stuff. The others are escaping gunfire. Jack tries to shoot somebody, has the safety on.
Right, yeah.
Again, this bumbling fool Jack.
Yeah. Well, and the girls, when Gracie, Margot, and Eddie were gassed, the girls were put in cages, and Eddie was, he ends up back with the boys.
Yeah. So they end up swimming down into basically a sewer. And
because the guys, they find where the girls are at. They're guarded by female fighters, and of course, like I think you mentioned, Jack gets his butt kicked.
Yeah.
Wang, he fights back, get the girls free. Yeah, and now, like you said, now they're on the run. Have they ran? Yeah, they have at this point. They've tried to escape, and they get to the door, very slapstick, where they think they're at the door, and Jack opens the door, and there's the entire army of fighters on the other side of the door. So he slams the door and tells everybody to run and hide. They only saw me. Like, he's going to save the day.
Yeah.
And this is where, again, they come busting the door down. And like you said, how did Jack take himself out of this fight? Was this the one where he's trying to take, was it a gun out of his boot or a knife out of his boot?
This one, he goes to.
He's got a gun.
Yeah, he goes to pull the knife out of his.
That's right,
out of his boot. He ends up winging the across the room. In the meantime, Wang is just taking guys out left and right.
Right.
And in the meantime, he's grabbed a gun. He grabs the knife, runs back to where he was, and does one of the
fights over completely done.
Yeah, Wang's just taking out 8 guys, and there's old Jack Burton ready to go.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, you didn't leave any left.
Yep, it's kind of like, when like the dishes need to be done or something like that, and like in my case, like my spouse is doing them, and there's like one dish left, and you walk up like, hey, do you need a hand?
You got it. Oh man.
That's good. Thanks for taking care of that.
You should have told me you were going to do the dishes.
Of course, yeah. Cause
Wang, you should have told me you're going to take everybody out.
We're considerate like that.
I would have been a little more careful with my knife.
So they all escape except for Gracie.
Right.
She was kind of bringing up the rear, and this giant orangutan-looking monster grabs her and pulls her through a secret passage.
Yeah, this is, and I'll talk a little bit about it later when we get to our 3, 2, 1s, but this is where, like, you can only suspend your disbelief for so long. And I was already like, okay, we've got America, and we've got San Francisco as an American town, but then we've got Chinatown as part of this, and it's got its own culture and heritage and mysticism. And Wang talks quite a bit around this point about, how all of these Chinese myths and legends that he's been told as a child are coming true, and, and all this stuff is real. But to an outsider of Chinatown, none of this stuff is real because it's not part of our culture. So it's like we're already stretching our disbelief quite a bit to buy into a 2,000-year-old man and these 3 storms of unrivaled strength and power. And, it's like, okay, I'll buy into that. That's fine. All right, we're good. And then, but still, up to this point, everything has been human-based. Everything has been physical and real and things, and then, like you said, then we get introduced to a monster. And so love the movie still, but this is the part where I'm like, oh man, like how deep does this whole go? And then of course, just being my old skeptical self, I've got questions like, well, what's this monster been doing up till now? Like, where does this monster go to the bathroom? What do you feed this monster? So, but anyway, go ahead.
What are the monster's wants and needs? What kind of meaning is the monster looking for in life? Is he leading a fulfilling life here?
Yeah, I mean, because Lo Pan's been looking for a bride with green eyes for 2,000 years. So what's this monster been up to?
Yeah, he has needs too, Lo Pan.
He does, yeah.
He has needs.
I'm sure there's, people for the ethical treatment of monsters.
Exactly.
Pet him.
I think my neighbor has that bumper sticker on their car.
Pet him.
Yeah, pet him, yes.
Did you see, off topic here, did you see this week that PETA has contacted Major League Baseball about changing the name of bullpen to arm barn?
I did see something about that. And for reasons unrelated to PETA's purpose there, I love arm barn.
I do too. Matter of fact, I was telling my wife and kids about it, and my son and I were playing a baseball game on the Xbox yesterday, and his pitcher was getting tired, and he's 7, and he even said, he goes, I should probably bring somebody out of the arm barn. I was pretty proud of him.
That is pretty good. Gold star for Lucas. So at this point, Lo Pan has both Gracie and Mao.
Yes.
And he tells them that he must marry a woman with green eyes.
Right. And we're unveiled what his plan is, due to the curse he's been put on. This is Egg and Wang talking a lot about this too, that the curse that's been put upon Lo Pan is he's lost his physical presence, which is why he can, ghost his way through walls and stuff. He's lost his physical being until he can marry a woman with green eyes. But to lift the curse, he needs to marry her and then kill her, sacrifice her to the demon that's put this curse on him. Yeah. So Lo Pan thinks, I'm ahead of the game here. I'm going to marry 2 women with green eyes, and I'm going to sacrifice Gracie and keep Mount Ian for myself, which, not a bad idea. He's had time to cook it up. 2,000 years. He's had plenty of time to weigh the pros and cons of this decision.
I mean, the bounds of matrimony are clearly what's driving him.
Yeah, oh yeah. He wants to be a good husband, and he doesn't want to sacrifice his wife.
Well, so, I mean, he'll just sacrifice one, but keep the other.
Right.
Good guy. Good guy, that Lo Pan.
Right. Well, and he's still trying, even though he's still trying to play what's true to American culture, and that you're monogamous. So he knows that marrying 2 women is wrong. So if I can regain my humanity and, take care of another lawyer in the world, why not? I'm sure that's his motive.
Yeah, that's exactly what's driving him right here. So Jack, Wang, Egg, they gather a small band of fighters, and they take off through the sewers underneath Chinatown as they go to Lo Pan's fortress,
right,
and try to sneak in through the bottom there,
right, which of course is just another building in Chinatown.
Yes.
Right.
So the sewers here happen to be very very dark and dank and have their own kind of mystic setting.
I love the setting of the sewers. I just, even as a kid, I love you feel like you have been transported somewhere else.
Yes.
Like this is it reminded me very much of like Labyrinth from Jim Henson, the David Bowie movie. That I'm like, this is where we're at now. Like this just has that other world feel to it.
Yes. Everything's wet and there's fog everywhere.
Do you think the San Francisco Street Department and the Waterworks Department, do you think that they installed the sewers that way for Chinatown just to play into their mysticism? Or do you think the Chinese residents of Chinatown did that for themselves?
Oh, I think it's definitely public works.
I think so. I think that, in a way to really make them feel welcome, and we want you to have your own portion of the town, your own culture and community that we'll let you not just surface level. We want to go deep. We're going to let you have the sewers that you need and you want.
Mm-hmm. You want ancient creatures down there? You got it. Your taxpayers are paying for this.
Right. And
your tax dollars at work.
And from a sewage standpoint, they're awful sewers. Just running, flowing water everywhere. There's like not a pipe in sight. It's just everyone evacuates down into this bog. That's where these monsters come from.
Yes, so there's monsters popping up here and there. One of them eats a guy and just drags him away.
Yeah, he's a red shirt.
Yes, yeah, exactly. you see Egg take his marble bombs out and throw them.
Yeah. I'm going to put that in my notes, that man gets eaten by bug. Egg throws marbles at it.
Yeah.
It says, you will come out no more.
Yes. So they end up popping up at the bottom of Lo Pan's fortress here. They kind of collect themselves. You see Lo Pan prepping the marriage ceremony. Jack and company are walking through the dungeons, and they come across another creature.
Right.
A floating eyeball goo head.
Yeah.
is how my notes describe it.
Mine just say a guardian. Because that's because it clearly is guarding, but that's what Egg said. Oh, it's a guardian. Like, okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't have rolled off the tongue the same way.
No.
It was floating eyeball goo head.
I think yours is nail on the head. I mean, it's exactly
a little more descriptive.
It's sticky, it's slimy, it's pretty gross looking, but it definitely fits the vein of what they're going for in the movie.
But the creature is it allows Lo Pan to see through its eyes. So it's kind of like Lo Pan's floating security system.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So Lo Pan sees them and knows that they're there, and he and Egg exchange words and threats to each other. Jack then shoots the eyeball, and it flies away. And after he shoots it, he looks at the other and says, "Well, you never know until you try." Because I mean, if I guess you can't blame him for that one.
And he's right. You don't know until you try, but you can probably take a guess.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? I don't know what he was trying to accomplish with, like Lo Pan already knew they were there, but that's too much for Jack. We're going to shoot first and ask questions later.
So Lopan then enters the main chamber and descends from what I can only describe as a skull escalator surrounded by neon green lights.
Yeah, a neon skull escalator.
It's one of the coolest set pieces I've ever seen. Like it's cheesy, but it's so awesome. Like imagine being at the mall. And like you know what?
Coming out of an '80s hot top, Spencer's.
I could really go for an Annie Ann pretzel right now. Let's take the escalator down.
Cinnabon's down there, guys. Let's. But I'm going to walk down to the skull escalator first. I don't want to take this one.
So they're there, and Jack and Egg and the gang and Wang they're in an elevator. On their way to this big final showdown, and Egg takes out a jar of medicine, an elixir of sorts.
Yeah, they're in Lopan's domain because we know we're there because there's the hallway of Buddha statues. But yeah, they go into Lopan's office and he's not there, so Egg just goes to the bar and whips out his potions. But go ahead.
So they take this potion, and again, just a wonderful scene. Jack belches, of course, because he's old Jack Burton, right. and that's what the white guy trucker does. Is he belches in the tank top.
He's American.
Yeah. So they all smile at each other, like, "Hey, like things are feeling pretty good." And Jack looks, "I feel pretty good. I'm not scared at all. I feel kind of invincible." And Wang, of course, in his own Wang way, it's me too. I got a very positive attitude about all this.
And I love how like they just hold the camera for just a beat or two longer than necessary, just so everything goes right back to just all right. All that just came out. I'm really uncomfortable now. All the fighters around him are just kind of looking at each other like they've done the potion before. Egg's just kind of like whatever, guys. But yeah. Like Wang and Jack are like, wow, this is really great. Yeah. It's really euphoric.
So they walk into the main chamber and see that the ceremony is underway. Lopan displays the moment of truth, the needle of love. He states his desire to conquer the universe, and he draws blood from Mao's arm, stating he is now flesh and blood. Egg was keeping the others at bay. Because they saw the ceremony, and Egg was like, no, we gotta wait.
Hold on. Gotta wait for him to become...
And so now Lopan is flesh and blood.
Yes.
And that's what Egg was waiting on.
Never seen a person more excited to bleed in my life.
Yes.
It's very high-pitched.
So the egg creature now is sitting on the ground. I don't know if it's because of the gunshot wound or if it just, it got tired from floating or...
Licking his eyeballs.
Yes. So Wang stabs it, and Lopan sees them. And then... Everyone looks at each other. I swear the camera hits every single one of the 60 people in the room as they all the pre-battle cry.
6 minutes of facial responses. No,
of just men looking at each other.
It's all that the side swiping transitions face to face to face. I love the exchange too when they get down there and they're giving each other guns. And they've got the 3 different sizes guns. They just keep switching them around until until Jack gets the biggest one. And
yes, that's right. So then another wonderful movie. Jack in his Jack Burton-ness yells ha ha, shoots the gun straight above him, knocking part of the ceiling, which hits him in the head, knocking him unconscious.
Yes.
So Jack has just again removed him from the fight, similar to before. One of the guys in their team jumps in, does a triple spin kick to some guy. Just amazing fight choreography. Just a little too over the top in just the right ways.
Well, and what I've really loved about Carpenter's approach to this is he knows he's making an American studio movie with an American studio producers. And I love how whether the studio figured it out or not, but really, we've seen this is our third big martial arts battle. We had the one in the alley at the beginning of the fight where the American sat in the cab of the truck and watched it. Wasn't a part of it at all. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was when Jack tossed his knife and Wang took everybody out. So, and for the third one here where Jack shoots the ceiling, this is 3 fights in a row where Carpenter has quickly and convincingly taken the American hero out of the fight and let the Asian actors have their martial arts spectacle, but at the same time staying true to the character, Jack Burton, that he's built all along. That this is just a bumbling idiot of machismo, that he's removed himself from the fight before he even gets a chance to do anything. He does get a chance to jump into this one, though.
Yeah, as it goes on, Wang does the amazing 360 run around the archway where he literally runs in a vertical circle.
I love that effect, though, because it's all practical. And so, yes. To a degree, but it's still just, you didn't CGI that. Somebody did that.
He does what I approximate to be about 5,000 backflips.
Yes. With no one in the way. Like
no, he's just backflipping across the room.
From one end to the other, yes. Everybody clears the path for Wang and his backflips.
And then Wang and Rain of the Three Storms get into one of the most epic fights in I think in film history.
Yes. I am absolutely certain that Ang Lee stole the idea for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon from this fight piece alone. Flying through the air with swords, swinging gracefully at each other, flips and contortions and all over the place. Without Big Trouble in Little China, I don't think Ang Lee figures out how to do that.
Well, I think...
I'm joking, of course.
This is really the pinnacle of action movies right here. So it was all downhill despite technology and advances in training.
There hasn't been... They've had... John Carpenter elevated the fight scene to a point where immediately after this movie, every fight scene for the remainder of film history has been CGI. Every one of them.
So the best way I could describe what the fight looks like, it looks like, these guys are literally just bouncing off trampolines.
Oh yeah.
And, simultaneously, and then sword fighting in the air throughout the arc, through the parabola of the leap.
Well, the first couple are convincing because they'll jump and meet and they'll get one sword swipe at each other.
Yes, but that's when they're jumping at each other, not jumping from the same point.
Yeah,
following
exactly.
Each other's arcs.
But once they jump off the same trampoline, which is a mega trampoline, by the way, they've got hours that they can sword fight before they land.
And you think about the arc of the jump when they're literally parallel to each other fighting in the air. That means that they had to run parallel to each other.
Yes.
Approximately 3 feet apart without fighting. Hit this jump, and then now that we're in the air, now we can start fighting again.
And in our second display of physics just denial, earlier we had Jack overpowering inertia. Here, these two just defy gravity. Mm-hmm. It just shows that, it just turns physics on its head. Ancient Chinese customs and culture quickly defy... They've been around longer than physics. Let's not kid ourselves.
So they land after fighting for a while, and Rain just kind of looks Wang up and down, and then...
He's very impressed.
And then the cut to Wang, who just does the double eyebrow raise.
Yeah, look what I'm capable of. I've had a potion.
I know, right? Jack has come to at this point, and a guy in some kind of ancient Eastern armor is coming at Jack.
Oh yeah,
and he stabs him with the knife in his boot.
Yeah.
So Jack has finally accomplished something of measure in this fight, and basically in the whole film.
Right.
Egg is throwing his explosive marbles everywhere. He fires a crystal rocket out of some kind of like bow rocket launcher.
Yeah, there's
a mortar launcher.
There's an exchange too where after Jack kills this I don't even know what you call it, statue come to life kind of thing.
Sure.
He shoots another guy, and Eddie. I like the exchange. Eddie says something to him like, "Is it the first time you ever plugged? You never plugged someone before?" Like plugged him, and Jack. Oh no, that's not my first. Like, oh, so Jack Burton's a murderer. Like, little character development, folks. He's a murderer. He's a murderer on the loose. That even then, of course, that's the first person he's ever shot. But I'm too proud. I can't admit that this is the first person. Can't do that. So it's just
old Jack Burton,
right? It's just he's so much.
So Lopan and Egg engage in this. I don't know what you could describe as it's kind of like like a mystic laser fight.
It's a Obi-Wan Darth Vader
Very
matchup,
Star Wars-esque,
but with Rock'em Sock'em robots. That's
so they have these like glowing avatars,
right. Yeah, even when I was a kid, that's what it reminded me of, is that these were just Rock'em Sock'em robots that they had fighting in their as they cast a spell at each other, and it was so like Star Warsian, Harry Potter. Like, they're not going to physically fight each other; they're going to use their mystic abilities to do so.
So that comes and goes. Lo Pan retreats with Mao and Thunder, and Lightning, the Raiden stand-in, seals their retreat.
Yes.
Rain and Wang are still fighting, and Rain goes for the kill, leaps at Wang, and Wang throws his sword in the air, stabs Rain right in the chest, and Rain goes flying into one of the big set pieces.
Right. Explodes.
Yes.
So it's just a bonkers scene, top to bottom. I mean, so much action and fighting, but well done. Like, you're not bored with it, despite watching 60 different individual fights happen. But it's just a lot of fun all over the place. But, and it brought it all back down to, humans fighting humans. We've been introduced to monsters already, but the monsters had nothing to do with this fight at all.
Yeah. So Jack and Gracie end up in the elevator to Lo Pan's office. They kiss in the elevator.
Well, yeah.
As they get out, Jack's lips are just covered in red lipstick.
He's got it all over.
Thick red lipstick.
Right.
Just adds to like kind of the slapstick nature of things, and how the film does not take itself too seriously in all the right ways. So they're back in the office. Lo Pan confirms to Mao that he is flesh.
Yes.
So Egg's tactic of waiting for that ceremony to end may pay off here. So Jack and Gracie confront him. Wang ends up showing up. Thunder is there. Wang draws off Thunder with another series of backflips.
As Thunder says, yeah, 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 and Wang it's amazing how he can backflip away faster than someone can run at him.
Yes.
But he doesn't. Success.
So Jack takes his knife from his boot, throws it at Lo Pan. Lo Pan, and he's just nowhere close to it. He just misses him. Jack just rolls his eyes at himself like, ugh. How did I miss an old man with a knife? Lo Pan picks it up, makes some kind of taunt. Goodbye, Mr. Burton.
Right.
Throws it at Jack, who catches it in midair.
Oh, yeah.
And with a second throw, nails Lo Pan right between the eyes.
If we haven't been testament to all of Jack Burton's just gaffes this entire time, you could almost convince yourself that the first throw was accidental, that he missed him on purpose, because he missed him so poorly that to then, as he says, it's all in the reflexes. He throws that out about 4 or 5 times in the movie. But to grab the knife midair, whip it right back, and catch him right between the eyes, like it, for that type of precision. But again, he didn't have reflexes the first time, so it's all about the reflexes. Oh, Jack Burton.
I know. So Thunder sees what's just happened.
Oh.
He sees Lo Pan's corpse, and Thunder he's sad. He literally blows up.
Yes, he
literally
and easily, despite all of the cornbally goofiness of this movie, easily the goofiest piece of all of it is the practical effect of watching Thunder morph into a garbage pail kid before exploding. And he does. It's an explosion. And he's blowing air out of his nose. And I mean, it's fun to watch. I remember loving it as a kid, but it's like
think like the cartoony, like steam blowing out of the ears, but only out of the nose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they get away from him. The others are climbing through holes in the ceiling. The last of the 3 storms, Lightning shows up.
Yeah.
Down a hall, and so he's coming at him. They're climbing through the ceiling.
And a really cool, I love how this scene looks, where he's flashing all those lightning bolts into the ceiling, and then he walks out of the light, and he's coming towards you. You see a silhouette of him, there's lightning bolts still flashing in his hands, but then that trellis ceiling piece that he had just caught on fire comes falling, crashing down behind him. Oh, it's just such a cool shot. Just to show, like, he really is, of the three storms, like, he is the strongest one. He's the coolest one. And he has been the whole movie. But it's just, he was always my favorite. He's just shot so cool. Cinematography, from Dean Cundy is just top notch as always, but it's I just really love that shot. Always have.
Yeah. Powers are by far the most mystical.
Yes.
And kind of animated of the three. So
right.
It just makes for a cool visual character. He's climbing up behind him. Egg takes a giant, like, stone Buddha statue and drops it 15 feet on his head.
Right.
So you assume that's the end of him. They make
because once he crashes down, then he explodes and everything, flames of fire everywhere. And he was gone.
Their escape. They run across Jack's truck, which is what he was. That's really all Jack cared about this whole time.
The whole time
was getting his truck back. That was really it. So they end up piling into the truck and they make their escape, and they end up for the closing scenes back in the restaurant.
Yes,
where Margot flirts with Eddie and Wang.
It's more than flirts. It's Eddie. What are you going to title this? I don't know. Why don't you come over tonight and help me figure it out? That was a straight invitation. But it's fine because it was established earlier that Eddie had a crush on Margot. So for her to just straight, hey, we've been through this together. Come on over. Let's figure out the name of this. I wonder if they ever came up with a name.
They came up with something.
It's probably Big Trouble in Little China. That's what I would have named the article.
Yes. A little on the nose, but...
Well, they didn't know it. They were in the movie.
So the last scene in the film is Jack he's back in the storm, back in the rain, driving the old Pork Chop Express.
Well, and even before we get there, Wang pays him triple. He owed him double or nothing. He paid him triple. And, and so he's got his money. He's going to go. And Gracie she throws herself at Jack. Just what do you think about getting a new truck with a bed big enough for two? And, like, she's ready to just go with Jack Burton.
Hit the road.
And he's just, I'll think about it. And even Margot's like, are you going to kiss her goodbye? And he just goes, nope. He's out. He came what he wanted. He wanted his truck. He wanted his money. He's got both, and he's leaving.
Like a real hero.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And as the hero, he, in a typical American action film, he would be riding off into the sunset. However, as you were saying, he's back on the Pork Chop Express.
It's pouring again outside.
It's pouring down rain. Yeah. The opposite of a sunset to be riding off into.
Yes, he's riding off into the rainstorm.
For the first time since all of this started, he puts his sunglasses back on. Like, it's nothing, but it's just something I kind of picked up is he's been trying to be Jack Burton this entire movie, and it hasn't allowed him to because he's so far out of his element. But truck driving scene, dominoes, everything up to when all this starts, he's got his sunglasses on. And as soon as he's now back to being his own guy, only worried about number one, then the sunglasses go back on. CB grabs his, is in his hand again. And so finish this up. Finish this review for us.
Well, he's back on the CB and the Pork Chop Express, back on the road. Camera pans back, and that same monster that had grabbed Gracie earlier was behind him, and that's how the film ends. So you assume that he and the monster become buddies on the open road.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's I think as John Wayne-ish, as Clint Eastwood-like as he is, this makes sense that Jack Burton, if it was the same universe, would probably be a big fan of Every Which Way But Loose. So this is his orangutan now. He gets to travel with a big giant orange animal, and I think that makes sense. I see where Carpenter was going here. Totally an homage to that.
Yes, yeah, I can't imagine. So Oz, overall, what did you think of this movie, Big Trouble in Little China?
I would say in all of film, and it could change as we get going on this show, but in all of film, right now, my happy zone is 80s Carpenter. I love the way they look. I love the way they're acted. I love the I love the allowance he's been given from studios to make his movie. This is not the first Carpenter film. This is not the fifth Carpenter film. I mean, he's hit us with Halloween and Christine, and this is 86. He's had a treasure trove of successful movies up to this point. Maybe not as super successful in their theatrical release, but have definitely grown legs and have stood the test of time. And so, this fits right in that wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. I love this movie. I've always been a fan of this movie. Every movie, you could argue has got its weaknesses. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But Big Trouble in Little China has always had a soft spot for me. It's definitely a movie. If I'm flipping through channels and it's on, I'm stopping. I don't care about commercials. I don't care if there's only 10 minutes left. At any given point in this movie, there's an enjoyable thing to watch. And you could argue that Jack Burton doesn't have a character arc in the movie, because he really doesn't. He's too proud for a character arc. Mm-hmm. But you could also argue that this is Jack Burton. He's a completed character. There's nothing more for us to gain from him. That he's, in some ways, he's impressed himself. That he's put into action in a way he's never seen before, and he delivers. He can't keep up with Wang, but he delivers in his own way. So this is a completed character. Like I stated earlier, wouldn't be necessarily a friend of mine, but I give Kurt Russell, tons of credit. He was very reluctant to sign on to do this movie with John Carpenter, as he's had some commercial flops up to this point. But I love Big Trouble in Little China. It's a warm blanket. You could throw it on and you could kind of forget about what's going on. If you got stuff bothering you, this movie will take you away from it for a while. You don't have to be well versed in ancient Chinese mysticism or culture or history or mythology. It's fun. Everything you need to know is laid out right there in front of you. It's an enjoyable film. I love it dearly. On a 10-point scale, I'd give it a 9.5. We'll get to some of the things that I was a little iffy on, but it is what it is. But no, Big Trouble in Little China. Couldn't think of a more fun way to start off the show. Episode number 1. Definitely a winner in my book. What are your thoughts?
One of the biggest compliments I could give a film is kind of something that you touched on just for a moment there, and it's just the watchability. You're flipping channels, you come across it, and that's immediately what you stick with for its entirety. Yeah. Wherever it's at, you pick it up and you finish it. That is typically the way that I kind of evaluate what movies would make my like desert island list. Like what are the movies that if you come across it, you're watching it, and right. This definitely would be there. And it's a movie that, in the latter part of my life here, has quickly gained steam. It's a movie that I unfortunately was not really introduced to as a child. I just never really came across it until I was an adult, and it's a movie that I kind of wish I would have. I would have had more exposure to as a kid, because I know I would have loved it as a kid, and that would have followed me. So on my unofficial rating scale, as we are recording this on Halloween, so I'm going to give this a rating of 72 candy corns, knowing that I hate candy corn.
Okay. 72 candy corns. Out of how many? Probably 10 million. No.
I mean, just
72.
That's how many were there. It's just 72.
To give it a Halloween rating, this to me is, if a Kit Kat and a whatchamacallit could have a love child, it would be Big Trouble in Little China.
I love it, because I love Kit Kats, and whatchamacallits are to me the most underrated candy there is.
I love a Kit Kat. But no, I agree with you on the watchability level of this. This movie was not made to win Oscars. This movie was not made to win awards at all. However, and as I've gotten older, I used to, as a film fan, I used to chase, the Criterion Collection, and I used to chase Oscar winners, and I wanted to feel like I knew what was going on. I wanted to be aware of what was going on in cinema. And you and I have been friends long enough that we also have gone down the deep, dark, recesses of awful films, which we'll hopefully cover too, because our definition of awful doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's awful. And so, but this is definitely one of those that I have found as I've gotten older. I rely a little bit more on like the IMDb's top 250, their ratings. Like, according to their ratings, the most, the best movie ever made is The Shawshank Redemption. Well, that's another movie like this. If it's on TV, I'm just watching it. Now I'll tell you this: if Big Trouble in Little China was on at the same time as Shawshank, Big Trouble's going to win.
No doubt.
But that's just because of who I am as a movie viewer. But yeah, I think you nailed it perfectly in that it's got a rewatchability that you're not going to get anything new out of it watching it again. You're not going to pick up something you missed, but it's just that it's cozy. You fall into it, and I feel the same way about Guardians of the Galaxy. Of all the Marvel movies out there, that one for me, that and Thor Ragnarok are the two that I'm going to watch them. I want to watch them again. And Big Trouble and a lot of Carpenter stuff, some of that we'll be getting to, later this month as we go along. I know we're doing another one next week. Falls in that wheelhouse of just, I don't think it could be made today as an original film. There has been talks of a remake with Dwayne Johnson as the lead, which I like Dwayne Johnson just fine as an actor. I think he could probably hold his own in this Jack Burton role. But if Carpenter hadn't made this movie back in '86, I don't think a movie like this would be greenlit today as an original feature. It's too far out there. It's not the heyday of I think we're coming around a little bit. Growing up with video stores and whatnot, studios realized that they could go scattershot with, we can greenlight everything, and if it gets rented, we'll make money on it. And then we went that phase before streaming where we've got our tentpole films. We can't really afford to experiment with stuff because things are just getting too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. But I think with streaming services now, Amazon Prime and Hulu, and you're seeing a lot more of that experimentation again. But it's also not your big studio houses that are throwing money at them. And so there's some good stuff on Netflix that would never see a theater because it's not a theatrical movie.
Sure.
And so I think Big Trouble in Little China, had it been released like this right now today, I think it would have a huge Netflix cult following, but I don't think it probably would have panned out in the theaters. But that's not a knock on Carpenter. I think that's just a knock on your average filmmaker today.
Well, Oz, let's hit him with the 3, 2, 1. So the 3, 2, 1 is how we're going to close every episode, and it's 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1, huh?
Yeah. Like, what were they thinking on that one? But yeah, I'm really excited for this format. I really like the 3, 2, 1, so we're going to end this. So you go ahead. What are your 3 likes?
My 3 likes, and I kept things pretty simple for this because, again, this is a simple movie. It's a movie that doesn't take itself seriously. I am a huge fan of both in film and even in life, of just goofy for goofy's sake. Like I don't think there is enough silly in the world, and this definitely does its best to fill a little bit of that silly in my life.
Oh yeah,
that we all need, and so one of my goods is simply just the opening scene as he's driving, talking on the CB of the Pork Chop Express, and he's hydroplaning everywhere.
Oh yeah,
it's the perfect introduction to him. He's talking to no one on his CB, even though he's talking with all the bravado of the world. He's eating his sandwich.
Giant sandwich. He's dropping lettuce all over the place. Like,
so, it's just it's such a great introduction.
Well,
to
and
his character.
and it's just it's fun because it establishes right away that Jack Burton is a pig. Yeah. Like there's no other.
Yeah, it's who he is. He's just like he is the white American man who doesn't care about anyone other than himself.
He's
all about how others perceive him.
But even then, the movie's aware of who he is because they name us. Here's Jack Burton. He's a pig. What's his truck's name? The Pork Chop Express. Like, it's almost like tongue in cheek. He's aware that he's a pig, but he doesn't care. And he's got and he's got the perfect job for it. I'm a long haul truck driver. I don't need to deal with people. I'm going to be by myself, doing what I want to do, and it's fine. He's not. And he does. He mentions his ex-wife. He's tried the family life before. He's tried to be married. It didn't work out. it's no surprise. You spend an hour and a half with Jack Burton like we just did. It's no surprise that nobody wants to be around him. And he's aware of that. Because he even told Gracie there at the end when she's like, oh, you know, giving him all those flirty eyes, I want to go home. You know, I want to go with you. He's like, eventually I rub everybody the wrong way. You know, he just knows it's not going to end well, which is why he didn't kiss her. No, it's not. I've tried it. It doesn't work. It's new to you. It's old to me. It's not going to happen. So I love it.
My second good is simply how he keeps taking himself out of fights. whether it's he throws his knife on the other side of the room and he has to go get it, or he shoots a hole in the ceiling and the ceiling falls on his head, or even in a moment of sort of success, you know, he stabs a guy and then the guy falls on top of him.
Right. Well, it just. I just thought
he's a bumbling goof.
Right, and I just thought of when you were talking about that, like. He had a machine gun in his hand. He didn't need to go get his knife, but that's Jack. Like, oh crap, my knife!
It's my knife. I mean, you see how obsessed he was with his truck. I mean,
it's just that's all he wants. That's mine. It is. Yeah. It's called like he's watching his friend single-handedly take on an army of people. Oh crap, my knife! I gotta go get my knife.
And my third good is simply the moment where he and Gracie kiss, and he's about to confront the big bad in the climactic movie, and his face is covered in her lipstick.
Right. It was so Bugs Bunny-ish.
Yeah. And it's just this silly moment, you know, where you're supposed to be kind of ramping up, the adrenaline's flowing, and here he is covered in lipstick because he just kissed the girl in the elevator on the way to fight the big bad guy.
And if she didn't rub it off his face, he would have been that way the whole rest of the movie.
Yes.
You know, he's just so unaware of it. So excellent.
What are your three goods?
Number one for me, and this is true for virtually all Carpenter movies, this is the score. It sets a mood early on, so synth driven. I'm a big fan of synth music, as I really can't put a nail on the head why, but I really have a lot over the past few months been living to a lot of synth driven music. Even bought myself a little MIDI keyboard to try to teach myself how to do some synth stuff. But, you know, in Carpenter's fashion, whether it be Halloween or The Thing, or doesn't matter, he's involved in the score. He makes the score. He sets a mood. It keeps you there the whole time. You're not finding any crazy offshoots of different song choices that don't fit the mood. It's all him. I really like a director that wears multiple hats on a set. Thinking of someone like a Robert Rodriguez, that he edits all of his own films, or Kevin Smith. Aside from the writing, you know, a lot of directors write their own stuff, but you know, Kevin Smith will do a lot of his own extras as well. And for John Carpenter, it's one of his strengths on his own is music, and he knows what kind of music he wants. And instead of bringing in a top flight composer, he just does it himself, and it's his. You can listen to all kinds of different movies, but you could argue that Howard Shore's scores sound the same. Danny Elfman's scores sound the same. They're great, don't get me wrong, but that's their wheelhouse. And Carpenter's the same way. So you've got that bassy synth score. You know, it just really channels, and I just love it. I love the score of all Carpenter films, and this one's no different. I also really love the choice of, this is Carpenter making a martial arts film. This is Carpenter making a Chinese Western type of film. You've got mysticism, you've got culture, you've got history, you've got all this stuff. It takes place in Chinatown. But he's also smart enough of a filmmaker to know, if I'm going to get American audiences in the seat to watch this, I got to have an American lead. And that's where Kurt Russell comes in. And like you mentioned that in your likes, that the way he takes himself out of the fight scenes, he's an integral part of the story up until we need martial arts. And then he gets ejected from the scene for various ways, comes back in to bring the plot forward. But I really love the showcasing of Asian actors in this American movie. It doesn't happen very often. It still doesn't happen very often, but definitely not in the 80s. It establishes right away that we're in Chinatown, that is more China than American. And they let this hero, he's just constantly over his head and he's constantly being saved. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked, that choice of, I really felt like Carpenter was like, an actor's an actor. It doesn't matter, what color your skin is, or, it's just, this is what I need, and I'm going to have you there. And so, I really like that choice. And 3, as a big Star Wars fan, I know you are too, I found a lot of parallels between the Star Wars universe and Big Trouble in Little China. And it's not necessarily there on the surface unless you really appreciate the Star Wars universe. But I mean, Jack Burton is Han Solo. I mean, that's all there is to it. The Pork Chop Express is that's his Millennium Falcon. All he wants is his money. That's really the only reason he's on board for this whole thing.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, you've got Egg and Lopan as your Obi-Wan and Vader. They've been around a long time. You could even make the argument that, Lopan, when he takes off his headdress, he's a wrinkly old bald man. So is Darth Vader. They were using their magic like it's the Force. And, and I even have in my notes that even the security guards, when they're leaving the White, is it the White Tiger? Is that what it was? Mm-hmm. When they're leaving the White Tiger and to get onto Egg's bus, and all of these security guards come out, and they're just shooting up this bus, just firing multiple rounds into this bus. Nobody gets hit, like a stormtrooper. And at the end of the movie, when they're running away again, they're coming out, or when, just nobody gets hit. When they're diving into the water to swim through the tunnel to get away, and they're just firing all these bullets into the water, nobody gets hit. Yeah. So it's like, even that, and that might be a stretch on mine, but even just your clone-looking, security guard character can't hit anybody when he takes a shot. So those are my 3 likes. Just so many similarities there. The Asian actor centered acting and the score, always the score. So all right, issues.
Yes, my 2 bads. One of them I kind of mentioned before. Jack's just not a very nice guy. Mm-hmm. He's not someone who is as watchable as the character is, and as much as kind of the fumbling bravado works here, he's someone that I could not stand in real life. And I pride myself on being able to get along with just about anyone. The one character trait that I know sometimes I struggle with other people is arrogance. Mm-hmm. Oh. And he's oozing with arrogance.
Oh yeah, that's all he's got.
Yeah, and that's you couldn't put it a better way. That is all he's got, and I think in his own way he knows that's all he's got.
Especially when he takes that potion on the elevator, and it's almost not a truth serum, but he's like, I'm not even scared, to where almost admitting that I've been afraid this entire time.
Yes,
but I'm just too proud to show it.
Yeah. And the other bad for me is, and this kind of plays against one of your goods, as great as the score was, and as great as the Carpenter synth is, mm-hmm. the song of the end credits is just terrible.
I'll admit I didn't stick around and listen to it, so I'll take your word for it.
It's written and performed by Carpenter. There's a music video that's out there. Oh man, it's bad. It's almost
now I gotta watch it. Now I gotta watch it.
Almost fun bad, but it's pretty bad. So Oz, what are your 2 bads?
My 2 bads, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is one, as mystic focused as this movie is, all this mysticism makes sense. I love it. You've established this folklore, you've established this fantasy world, but when Gracie gets taken by that orange monster near they're in the to kind of kick off the 3rd act, it just I wasn't a fan. Now, we only had 2 monsters in the movie. I'll give it that. You got that floating eye gooey monster, and then this orangutan, this orange monster. But you've got so many characters in the movie, so many actors in the movie, that door could have opened up, and one of those living statue-looking guys could have grabbed her just as easily, knowing that that's still a human form. And so I was all on board for the mysticism, 100%, but introducing those kind of monsters just felt out of place, because you've established you have monsters, but then they didn't do anything. Like this orange monster showed up twice. It took Gracie and then showed up in Jack's truck. Like, it easily could have been omitted or replaced with something else. And so that was one of the dislikes for me, was it's like, you didn't need to go that far. I actually, in my notes, called him a garbage Wookiee. They just didn't fit for me.
Yeah.
And the other one, and I mentioned it earlier, is, and you kind of touched on it too, Jack's just not a good person. There's no redeeming quality to him.
No.
There's no character arc. There's so much opportunity for a character arc. I found myself a lot in this movie wondering, why is Wang friends with this guy? Like, he's not there often. As a truck driver, you're probably not in Chinatown all the time. But like, Wang is such a positive presence, such a focus-driven person, and then there's Jack that's just machismo. Yeah. And I couldn't plan, like, why are these two friends? It just didn't make any sense to me. And so Jack not having a character arc did bother me. Yes, I made the argument earlier that he's already a complete character, but that also makes it sound like people can't change. And this is something in Jack's everyday life that he's never experienced before, ever. And yet, at the end of it, I'm still Jack Burton. You can't change who I am.
The Pork Chop Express. Right. Ask my ex-wife.
And so even when he hits the road, he starts almost bragging about the things he's been up to in all of this endeavor, all of this action. It's just, take it from old Jack Burton if you find yourself. And I'm like, Jack, you know, like,
you can't wait to scream into the void about how great he is.
Yeah, and so that was a dislike for me. But again, testament to Kurt Russell for playing the character so unlikable.
Yeah, and but yet he still has a charm and a charisma.
Yeah. You still can't.
Which is probably why Wang likes to hang out with him on occasion, because I can see him being one of those people that, like, on occasion for a couple hours he's fun to hang out with.
I bet.
Until you remember, wait, this guy's a complete jerk.
Yeah. I don't like him in my life, but he's as they establish in Fight Club, he's a single serve friend.
Yes.
So, all right.
My one in our 3, 2, 1 countdown here is simply, so Lopan, all he needed for the last 2,000 years was a woman with green eyes.
That's it.
He just needed a woman with green eyes. And it was established when he took Gracie that it didn't have to, that the green eye trait, that biological trait, did not necessarily have to come from someone of Eastern Asian descent. Right. Because Gracie,
she worked.
European background, she would have worked. So it took him 2,000 years to find a woman with green eyes, and he finds 2 of them in one night.
Oh yeah. There was definitely a lot of coincidence but that's fine. It's again, if we're gonna get nitpicky over,
sure, you suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, it's like whatever, But I agree that, like, 2,000 years. You've never seen a woman with green eyes? And clearly it's not like he was trying to woo either one of them into being his wife.
Yeah, he just needed a woman with green eyes.
Yeah. And so, it's kind of a bummer. But, nobody said Lopan was smart, so. No. My was Thunder's explosion at the end. It is goofy. Even as a kid, when Garbage Pail Kids were a thing, that's all I saw. So I'm like, this is Snotty Scotty. This is Alligator. This is a Garbage Pail Kid come to life. You could have injected him into that movie, and he would have fit just fine. The choice to make Thunder blow up was fine, but it was just the execution. Really, it was the practical effects of it all. It was cartoonish, and in a movie that's already cartoony, this was really cartoonish. And so that was really it for me, is what was going on there.
All right, well, Oz, my friend, I think we've had a blast here talking about Big Trouble in Little China. This is the first of our 80s Carpenter series that we're kicking off with, kind of little mini seasons, if you want to think about it that way.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so you can catch us what are we talking about next week? What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're as we continue our 80s Carpenter theme, we're going with 1988's classic Roddy Piper driven They Live.
Yep, that's my choice. We're bringing They Live. So many quality 80s Carpenter films to deal with, but we wanted to definitely touch on a wheelhouse that they're near and dear to our hearts. So we are talking about They Live next week. We thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. Hopefully you come back next week. You can catch this video on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to all your favorite podcasting apps or whatever you need to. But yeah, you could definitely find us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, trying to really get this out there. So if you enjoyed our talk about Big Trouble in Little China, make sure you come back next week, listen to our next episode, second part of our 80s Carpenter block. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell people that you hate and you want them to listen to a podcast you can't stand. That's fine. Tell them too. But we'd love to have you guys back. For us, this is just a couple of buddies that love movies and don't get a chance to talk to each other as often as we'd like to. So really, this is just an opportunity for us to hang out and talk about the things we like. But yeah, hit us up if you get a chance in the comments or the feeds or whatever. If there's any movies you'd like to see covered or themes you'd like to see covered, we'll try to figure out a way to get them to work out. So, but again, I thank you guys for hanging out with us. Curtis, you got anything to sign off with?
No, have a great week. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things that the podcasters ask you to do, and we look forward to having you along for the ride next week.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye.